And every now and again, I'll just kind of be like, all right, what's going to leave this month? And the reason I do that is because if I don't have to download it so I can watch it, I feel like that's a win, especially with things that generally aren't streaming a lot of places.
Sure.
And I happened across The Nutty Professor 2, The
The
Clumps.
Clumps. I've never seen that one. I've only seen the first one, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah, you should be. It was hilariously painful. There's a full-on rape joke in there. Sorry, there's
Oh,
two. There's two rape jokes in there.
oh, Eddie.
Even for being released in the 2000, the jokes were dated. The jokes and the gags were dated as.
We hate to see it.
Think of it this way: like everyone's like, "Oh, Pluto Nash is when he started going downhill." No, it was this film which came out 2 years prior. All right, The Clumps was the start of the slumps.
Ooh,
I don't know why people would greenlight that film other than, oh, Eddie Murphy, it'll make money.
that's
I'm
it.
pretty sure it actually did make money. I'm not going to look it up because I don't want to do it to myself, but
I'll look it up for you.
thank you.
Budget of 84 million, worldwide gross of 166 million. So, about broke even.
That's better than hearing it made like $300 million.
Yeah,
Pretty sure it won a few Razzies, as it should have.
one would hope.
We really do hope for that around these parts, because you know what? Speaking of hoping for things, do you hope we get started?
Let's do it.
All right, living the dream. Hit that intro. Two friends named Corey and Steve like talking about films and TV. They thought, hey, what if this was a show? That's how we got here, now you know. Wait, what's the name? That sounds terrible, go on. That sounds terrible, go on. We hope you stick around and have some fun right after our intro song. That sounds terrible, go on. Welcome back, folks, to another fantastic episode of That Sounds Terrible, Go On. I am your host, Corey.
And I'm your host, Steve.
Steve, did you sleep well last night?
You know, I had some nightmares.
Yeah, tossing and turning around in them.
Yeah, you know, it's a little vague, but you know, there was a hat, there was a glove,
Wait, was there a sweater?
there was a sweater, a striped one.
That's the most terrifying thing to see in a nightmare is a striped sweater. Did you know that?
I did know that. I experienced it.
And Steve, that's almost as terrifying as the fact that we are talking about 1984's A Nightmare on Elm Street.
We certainly are, and I've got some thoughts.
I'm really excited to hear your thoughts because I believe this is a first-time watch for you, isn't it?
It was, yes. Had not seen it before last night.
Of course, Nightmare on Elm Street is the classic 80s slasher film, written and directed by Wes Craven, and of course starring Robert Englund as Freddy Krueger, an icon, if you will.
He is. I'll give him that. 100%. I can't see anyone else doing that role.
And Steve, sometimes when I try to see things, I can't because I've misplaced my glasses. And I find myself, like stumbling around and sometimes I stumble into you and I look up and I think to myself, don't I know you?
Don't you?
Let's find out.
Let's.
All right. Question 1. Throughout the film, we see Nancy's mom, Marge, drinking vodka. So, Steve, what's your favorite liquor to drink?
Oof. I'll be honest. I cannot do straight liquor. I have got a terrible stomach. It just comes right back up. That being said, whiskey. Whiskey is good. I like rum in a cocktail. I like whiskey in a cocktail too, but it's got to be like whiskey forward, like a nice old fashioned sort of situation. Yeah, whiskey and rum, because I'm a pirate. Corey, what's your liqueur of choice?
Funny enough, also whiskey, because we're apparently two peas in a pod. However, I like to drink my whiskey just as is or on the rocks. I will also do vodka, but I tend to do vodka in mixed drinks.
Love a good cocktail.
If New Amsterdam is listening and they want to sponsor us, I'd be totally okay with that.
Even if the old one's listening, we'll take anything.
I'll take a middle-aged Amsterdam at this point.
And how?
Question 2. So, A Nightmare on Elm Street has to do with dying while these characters are having a nightmare. So, Steve, name a nightmare you had once.
I remember one from when I was very, very young. I was probably like 6 or 7. And I had this dream that my family was being both crucified and burned alive. And it was very vivid and visceral.
Hot.
Yeah, very. And it was in our church's parking lot. Nothing to read into there.
No, I'm sure no therapist would have any thoughts upon hearing about that dream.
Nope, not at all. I don't know why that one came to mind. That was upwards of 20 years ago, maybe almost 30. But yeah, stuck with me. Corey, what's a nightmare that you have had?
This was actually the first nightmare I ever remember having. I was in, I want to say preschool or kindergarten, and the dream was the entire class I was in, we went on a field trip to Wegmans, and we got into the back of Wegmans, where there's all the boxes of things and such like that. But it turned out that Wegmans was evil, and they were ushering us onto this platform, and I watched them lower somebody in, and when they came back out, they looked like Sloth from the Goonies. And I woke up as me and my entire class were being slowly lowered into the vat.
Wild.
I have no idea what to make of that. I don't know where it even came from, but that's absolutely a nightmare I had once.
And you managed to go back into a Wegmans eventually.
Question 3. In one scene, we get to see Nancy's boyfriend, Glenn, laying in bed, watching TV while he's listening to music before he falls asleep.
Yeah, like a f***ing monster.
We'll get there. But Steve, do you listen to anything while trying to fall asleep? And if so, what?
Nope, not much of a listening when I'm trying to fall asleep. I do a bit of scrolling on the social medias, which is probably not super healthy, but reading wears my eyes out and makes me real sleepy. And then I nod off. And then I probably have horrific dreams, but I never remember them. So, joke's on you, brain.
Balance.
Exactly. Corey, do you listen to anything when you fall asleep?
I tend to have the TV on and I'll go for a sitcom that I know I won't get sucked into. I can't be like laying my head down about ready to pass out, and all of a sudden I hear on the TV, guys, it's really serious. There's something wrong with Topanga, because I'll just spring right up. What the f***'s wrong with Topanga? So usually it's something that I've seen so much, there's no stakes in it whatsoever. So I'll do like The Simpsons more often than not.
Nice.
And now, I know you.
And I know you.
All right, folks, that was Don't I Know You? Now, before we get to anything else, just a quick commercial break. Don't sleep on it. All right, folks, I am here at Goblin's Den Tattoo out in the lovely Syracuse, New York, being currently inked by Leah, owner, operator, and a fantastic individual. Leah, how are you doing today?
We're doing good. Doing
really good, doing good. Am I doing good? Am I sitting good?
Yes.
Excellent. Fantastic.
We're both hydrated.
That's the dream. Let's be honest here. So how long have you been tattooing for?
I have been tattooing for technically 5 years.
So tell me, what are your favorite tattoos to both design and put on people's bodies?
I think the biggest thing for me is for someone to be really inspired with their idea, really excited. That's always a plus, and not just like a last second kind of deal. Something that you can think about and be like, yep, this is how we're going to do it, critique it, special, all that jazz. But personally, when it comes to style, my drawing style is preferred anime, but I do like cartoons, I do like spooky, scary stuff. I like plants and stuff. A lot of people come to me for floral. Yeah, so I like more animated stuff that can be stylized. Kind of neo-traditional, but not so out there.
Well, you heard it here, folks. If you're looking for any of those kinds of styles or designs, you know exactly where you need to hit up. But again, that is Goblin's Den Tattoo out in Syracuse, New York. What's the Instagram name?
Instagram name is Goblin's Den Tattoo. Same for Facebook. We're currently adjusting our social medias and getting them more active. So Instagram, Goblin's Den Tattoo, Facebook, Goblin's Den Tattoo. And my name is Leah Tran, if you're trying to look for me personally. We also have another artist, Sid, and Sid is also on there as well.
And folks, the Goblin's Den Tattoo is also a safe place for those of you who are LGBTQ+. So if you're looking for a shop that's both safe and not run by pieces of human garbage, then we can give you the guarantee that the Goblin's Den is the destination. Again, that's the Goblin's Den. Find them on Instagram or Facebook and book your next session today. Welcome back, folks.
Hey there.
Again, today we are talking about 1984's A Nightmare on Elm Street, one of the most famous horror films of all time.
It is, and I see why. I also... we'll get there. Carry on.
You know what, Steve? I think the best way for us to move on is to talk about some things of this film. Perhaps some people.
Oh, like every single person involved in the film?
No, Steve, we're going to be talking about the members of our cast and crew!
Oh, it's the cast and crew!
As always, folks, the cast and crew is part of the pod. We talk about some cast members, talk about some crew members. Now, are we able to get to every single person?
You know it. Yes.
Steve, I'm telling you right now, this is a dream that's never coming true. No matter how hard you dream it, we're not gonna ever do it. You gotta let it go.
Hey, man, we gotta talk about those kids playing jump rope.
Steve, we certainly don't. But, folks, if you feel like there is someone that we should have included in our cast and crew list, please reach out to us and let us know on our Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube page. Of course, kicking this off, we gotta talk about the director, the writer, a Mr. Wes Craven. Craven is best known as the director and writer of such films as 1972's The Last House on the Left, 1977's The Hills Have Eyes, and its 1985 sequel, The Hills Have Eyes Part 2, 1982's Swamp Thing, and 1991's The People Under the Stairs. He's also been the director of the first 4 films of the Scream franchise. He's also been nominated 2 times for a Fangoria Chainsaw Award, winning 1. Now, unfortunately, in 2015, he would pass away due to a brain tumor. Wes Craven gets brought up a lot in horror, not just because his things are scary, because I'll be honest, of everything I've seen of him, I've never actually been scared, but it's the way he explores the themes of horror. He is someone that you want to watch in like a horror film dissection class to talk about, okay, he's talking about this theme in this film, and here are the scenes and what they're representing. It's clear, but it's also not. Like, if you're not looking at it, like if you're just treating it like a popcorn flick, that's all these films are. But if you're actually diving into it and looking at what these themes mean and what he's exploring, it's a whole other world.
Yeah. This man not only fully understands the genre in which he works, he spent a good chunk of his life defining it. Like, he's been setting the standard for, wow, I didn't even realize it. His filmography goes back as far as the early 70s. Absolute legend.
The direction of this film is really good to me because I love what he does with the character of Freddy. Like, when we see Freddy on screen, the way he would shoot him, he wanted him to appear as vicious as possible while also still being, like, playful with it as well. It also just speaks right to the writing. The character of Freddy is written to be someone who is enjoying the fact that he is torturing these kids.
Yeah, and that absolutely comes across. Also, just the basic premise that, like, the villain gets you every time you sleep. Everybody gotta sleep. That's inescapable. It's a nice, scary thought to play with.
And also the idea of the whole having it be a mystery and having, you know, who Freddy is and why is he actually coming after them. Like, he's actually giving them a purpose. So he's doing one of the classic slasher tropes, which is it's about revenge. It's a huge thing in slashers. Like, another one I could name for horror fans out there would be Terror Train would be one, or even the Friday the 13th films. It's all about Jason getting revenge on people.
We'll get there.
One day, but it's a way of making you start off by thinking, oh, what? There's no motivation for this slasher. Why do I care? But as it's unfolding, oh, this is such a cool idea. He's back because of vigilante justice, even though he absolutely should have died this way. Moving on, though, we have Robert Englund as Freddy Krueger. Now, Englund is best known as, honestly, the only Freddy Krueger that matters, but also as Raymond Beaumont in 1997's Wishmaster, Professor William Wexler in 1998's Urban Legend, Willie in the V franchise, the voice of Riddler in Warner Brothers' mid-2000s The Batman cartoon, Vulture in Kids WB's The Spectacular Spider-Man animated series, and he even voiced Dr. Jonathan Crane, aka the Scarecrow, in the Injustice 2 video game. He has also been nominated for 3 Saturn Awards and 2 Fangoria Chainsaw Awards. We already talked about it. Iconic role, iconic character, iconic performance.
He brings such a, like you said, playfulness. Like he's playing with his food the whole time. Like he could destroy these kids in an instant. This movie could be 5 minutes long if it wanted to be. It's him drawing it out and like building up their fear that really makes it. And the way that he just enjoys it and his laugh. Englund brought a lot of iconic stuff to this role.
Especially for being a smaller guy in a slasher film, too, because most slashers, by this point, everyone who's like supposed to be built up to be this big monster, that's what they are. They're huge, like wide shoulder, carrying a sledgehammer, charging at you full blast, and able to catch up to you in an instant. Freddy's different. Freddy is this small, thin guy who is just really good at mind-fucking you.
It's wild.
So what I really like about Englund's performance, I love the look he has in his eyes and his smile. It just says, I am cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, and I love every second of it.
Oh boy, here I go killing again.
Bitch.
You know, he didn't say that once.
He'll say that in the sequels.
I'm sure, but like that's what he's known for, and I was expecting him to just be saying bitch left and right. Not a single time.
No scary Terry here, sir. Next up, we have Heather Langenkamp as Nancy Thompson. Now, Langenkamp is best known as Mary Lubbock in ABC's Growing Pains and its spin-off TV series, Just the 10 of Us. She is also the recipient of 1 Fangoria Chainsaw Award and was inducted into Fangoria's Horror Hall of Fame in 1995. She hasn't done much worth of note, but she is important as she is the main character here who unravels the entire mystery of figuring out who is this man trying to kill me and my friends, and she is the one who eventually takes him down, wink wink, nudge nudge. But I think when it comes to her performance, there were times where she was really, really good. Like, I loved her in the final showdown. I loved her mannerisms then, but starting off, she just felt very plain. There wasn't anything that really made her stand out, and I don't know if that was done on purpose, but watching her on screen, I'm like, oh, these are just kids saying lines. There's no emotion in this.
Yeah, I want to say it was done on purpose. Like, the way the movie introduces her, it starts off with her not being the main character, and she's just sort of like the quirky sidekick. Maybe not quirky, but she's the best friend. Until the first kill happens, and then suddenly it's Nancy's story, and then we start to get to know her. That was a nice, clever thing that Wes Craven did, and he would do again in Scream. But he did it first here, I assume. I haven't seen all those films. But yeah, Nancy is, she's a pretty solid final girl.
I would say so, yeah. Like, she's definitely deserving of final girl, like, Hall of Fame status. More so for the fact that she's clever, and she is absolutely vicious when she needs to be. And just the way her character evolves as we go through the story, you start seeing her like just becoming more and more exhausted and desperate in that exhaustion. So maybe I think you're right. Maybe she was supposed to be just like, oh, yep, just standard high school girl. And she just slowly morphs into this, I want to sleep, so you have to die mentality.
The only character in this movie with any sense.
I think that's exactly on the mark. The entire time, she's the one asking questions like to her, like, asking to her boyfriend, like, hey, do you have nightmares? And he's like, haha, Nancy. And he just runs off to go kick a football or something. I don't know. But then she's also the one like diving in like, no, he's this guy like, oh, look, I brought his hat back, which means I could bring the rest of him back and I could prove to you all that he exists. And then we could kill him. She is so smart, and the way that her intelligence is revealed is, again, kind of the sliding scale of the more exhausted she gets, the smarter she gets.
True. Go Nancy.
And folks, that's going to be the members of our cast and crew.
Hey, it's the cast and crew.
Next up, the generically named How It's Made.
Hey, how'd they make that?
As always, folks, with the generically named How It's Made, I have gone through and I have compiled, to the best of my abilities, a full production history of this film. I have taken all of this, compiled it into a Word document, which Steve is opening right now. Now, Steve has yet to see this Word document, so he's going to read it off to us and give us his takes in real time. So, Steve, whenever you're ready, take it away.
In the 1970s, the Los Angeles Times printed several articles about Hmong refugees who, after fleeing to the United States because of the war and genocide in Laos, Cambodia, and Vietnam, suffered from disturbing nightmares and refused to sleep, with some of them dying in their sleep soon after. The medical phenomenon was called Asian Death Syndrome. That's a choice. And affected men between the ages of 19 and 57, and was believed to be sudden unexplained death syndrome, Brugada syndrome, or both. These articles were noticed by Wes Craven, where he said it was a series of articles and the paper never correlated them. Further inspired by Gary Wright's song, Dreamweaver, Craven was inspired to begin writing A Nightmare on Elm Street around 1981 after finishing production on 1982's Swamp Thing. Craven would pitch the film to several studios, with each one rejecting it for different reasons. At first, Walt Disney Productions showed interest. What? Although they wanted Craven to tone it down to make it suitable for children and preteens as a PG-13 film. Boo. Which Craven declined to do. Good. Paramount would pass on the project due to its similarity to 1984's Dreamscape. Craven would eventually find a studio for his script in New Line Cinema, who at that point had mostly just distributed films such as Reefer Madness. Interesting. I did not know that about New Line. Also, Reefer Madness is a fun watch.
Whether high or sober.
Absolutely. The way that film devolves from, oh, kids trying pot, to, oh, everybody's dying, it's great. Due to lacking the financial resources to fully fund the production themselves, New Line would turn to outside investors. They would first find two men from England who each contributed 40 and 30% of the budget respectively. However, the man who had contributed 40% backed out 4 weeks prior to filming, yikes, but home video distributor Media Home Entertainment would step in to fill that gap. Other investors included a producer of 1974's The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Heron Communications, and Smart Egg Pictures. Originally, David Warner would be cast to play Freddy, with even makeup tests being done before he dropped out due to scheduling conflicts. Kane Hodder, who would later go on to play Jason Voorhees in a few Friday the 13th films, was sought out by Craven, even having a meeting with him to discuss the role. Eventually they would settle on Robert Englund, after during his audition he was willing to, according to Craven, go to the dark places in his mind. Oh, he sure did. Englund also would darken his lower eyelids with cigarette ash on his way to the audition. Ooh, sneaky, sneaky boy. On his way to the audition. So that's like, he's just making himself look extra tired then, right?
He's trying to make himself look extra creepy, like he's trying to have the sullen eye look.
A little bit. It brings a new meaning to the term smoky eye. Englund said he took the part because it was the only project that fit his schedule during the hiatus between the V miniseries and series.
So V is a science fiction miniseries from back in like the early 80s. So the miniseries was so popular, they were like, no, we're going to turn this into a TV series, so you all get like a few months off.
I didn't know they made it into a full thing. I remember the remake in the late 2000s or early 2010s.
Yeah, it was a pretty big thing back then, honestly.
Nice. Also did not know he was in that. Was he one of the aliens?
I have never seen it, so I can't say for sure. Let's say probably yes.
Cool. The role of Nancy would go to Heather Langenkamp after an open audition that included more than 200 actresses. During these auditions, all the actresses read for the role of Nancy, but they also would cast the role of Tina from this pool. They did this because they wanted to mix and match and find the two actresses with the best chemistry together. Johnny Depp would be cast in the role of Glenn after Wes Craven's daughter picked Depp's headshot from the set he showed them. I mean, he's just there to be a pretty face, let's be real. Filming would begin on June 11th, 1984, taking place in and around Los Angeles. Locations include John Marshall High School, North Genesee Avenue, Lincoln Heights Jail, Cahuenga Beach Library, and Evergreen Cemetery. During 2 weeks of filming, New Line's distribution deal for the film would fall through, and they were unable to pay its cast and crew during that time. Yikes. More like bottom line cinema. Over 500 gallons of fake blood were used for the special effects. During the blood geyser sequence, the filmmakers used the same revolving room set that was used for Tina's death. To film the scenes, the cameraman and Craven were mounted in fixed seats taken from a Datsun B210 car while the set rotated. The set would be inverted, then have a camera attached so it would be looking right side up, then poured the red water into the room. It's a very cool looking effect. TBH. That's my favorite thing about this movie is the effects that they do. They're spectacular. We'll get there. During the scene, the red water poured out in an unexpected way and caused the rotating room to begin spinning. They would also film another take for the TV version where a skeleton shoots out from the hollowed-out bed, smashing into the ceiling. The scene where Nancy is attacked by Krueger in the bathtub was accomplished with a special bottomless tub. There was probably a bottom somewhere. Like, there's a floor, there's the ground underneath, there's the mantle.
Some people are still drowning to this day, Steve.
Yikes. The tub was put in a bathroom set that was built over a swimming pool. The melted stairs were created using pancake mix. Nice, nice. The wall where Freddy puts his face and hands through to stretch out. The wall was built out of spandex. Kinda guessed that one, but again, super cool effect. Filming would take 32 days, wrapping on July 13th. That is a pretty efficient production, doing a movie of that scale.
I mean, if you're looking at it, New Line didn't have a choice because they were running so thin on the budget at this point. This was their first major motion picture that they were going in on. Like, I guess the special effects budget was very, very low to the point where the special effects guy, when he was told, he was like, I guess I'll have to make that work because I'm here. Let's go.
And they did. A Nightmare on Elm Street would begin with a limited theatrical release on November 9th, 1984, opening in 165 cinemas across the U.S., going on to gross $1.271 million in its opening weekend. It would eventually go on to earn $57 million worldwide against a $1.8 million budget. Not bad at all. New Line Cinema would begin calling themselves the house that Freddy built in response. The film also spawned the Elm Street franchise, which includes 6 sequels, 1 film crossover with the Friday the 13th franchise, comic books, action figures, a video game, a horror anthology TV show, tie-in novels, and a 2010 remake. Included in this legacy would also see the film selected for preservation in the United States National Film Registry by the Library of Congress as being culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant in 2021. Wow, it took them that long? In addition, Freddy himself would be selected as number 40 in AFI's 100 Years, 100 Heroes and Villains list.
I have a problem with that list only because, they only chose 100 heroes and villains total, so it was actually a list of 50 and 50.
Yeah, they could have expanded that.
It's false advertising, let's be honest.
Come on, AFI.
Also, I just want to make a note since we did mention the 2010 remake. I recently watched that because I figured, well, I've never seen this before and I've heard nothing but horrible things, and I can absolutely confirm all of those horrible things. Any type of proper thought into a plot or character development or even special effects just thrown right out the window. It is an aggressively horny film for no real reason.
Well, that's a shame because I really like Jackie Earle Haley.
Yeah, he just got put into a bad film. I don't blame him for that.
It happens. Thus concludes the generically named How It's Made. Oh, that's how they made it.
All right, folks, before we get into anything else, just another quick commercial break. Lay down.
I shan't.
Hey, folks, did you know that we're a couple of corporate whores? We will do whatever you say for money. That's right. We'll give an ad that promises the world to your potential customers for whatever you're trying to sell. Is it true? Doesn't matter. Is it going to work? Still doesn't matter. Give us $5, give us $10. We'll make all your dreams come true as long as your dreams are limited to having your product hawked on our podcast.
But Steve, what if I don't have an advertisement written for you?
Well, for a small extra fee, we can write one for you, aka make one up on the spot and half-ass it.
That's right, folks. If you have any interest in advertising with us, please hit us up on our Instagram at That Sounds Terrible Pod, or find us on Twitter by looking up That Sounds Terrible. Go on.
Slide into our DMs so we can slide into your ads. We're going to do an ad for you.
That's right, folks. Fill our bank accounts so we can line your pockets with that sweet, sweet internet money. Welcome back, folks.
Oh, hey there. Didn't see you there.
I swear to God, though, Steve, if I don't get some sleep soon, I think I'm going to break.
But like in what direction?
I think I'm going to have a breakdown.
Oh, don't do this to me.
That's right, folks. It's the breakdown. We're going to be going through the entire plot, scene by scene, giving our takes along the way. Now, are we able to make a comment on every little thing that happens?
Yep, we're going line by line.
Abso-frickin-lutely not. I'm not doing it. That is my nightmare. And also, I think that would be our audience's nightmare as well.
Yeah, debatable.
Well, folks, if you feel the need to debate us on that, please feel free. Hit us up on our Instagram, Facebook, or YouTube page. Listen, folks, don't let your dreams be dreams. Let's get into this breakdown here in 3, 2. Teenager Tina Gray, played by Amanda Weiss, awakens from a terrifying nightmare in which a disfigured man wears a bladed glove, attacks her in a boiler room. Her mother, played by Donna Woodrum, points out the mysterious slashes on her nightgown. Tina grabs a crucifix off her wall as she begins hearing a song being sung by young schoolgirls. So in the opening, we get to see who is eventually going to become Freddy Krueger, making his signature bladed glove while breathing heavily and marveling in his work, and then we get a title screen. I like what they did here in the way they shape the shot so that they make it into this small square with a large black border around it. Because to me, this is kind of saying like, hey, put all of your focus right here before it quickly jumps to full screen after the title appears on.
And starting it with just his breathing is quite a choice. It is so unsettling. It gets under your skin, just like Freddy does. And I love that about it. I love that he's also already like the undead demon thing, and instead of like us seeing his origin.
Let's talk the nightmare, though. So we've got Tina running through a wet corridor of what appears to be a basement. Steam is spilling all around, water's pouring everywhere, and she gets startled by a sheep. And I'm willing to bet the symbolism here was to compare her to a sheep being led to slaughter. I feel like this is like further cemented by, sheep tend to have white wool, and the nightgown she's wearing in the dream, all white.
Yep, purity. That symbolism is absolutely there. Also, about this nightmare, something they really captured well in this, above all the other dream sequences, is how slowly you run in dreams. You ever try to move around when you're in a dream, you're not getting very far very fast. I felt that really came across here when she's running away.
Also, this scene sets the rule that when you're attacked in the dream, you're also being attacked in the real world. I think it's important that they start off by like just setting what are the stakes? Like, how is this going to work? This is how it works. It works because it works. This is the rule. Deal with it.
Yeah, don't think too much about it.
Also, we got to talk the song here of the creepy schoolgirls, which I honestly can't remember the real like nursery rhyme that it's based off of. I feel like it's based off of something, but
Yeah,
I could be completely.
Well,
actually, it's
1,
not.
2, buckle my shoe.
It is 1, 2 buckle. See, whenever I think of it, it's so iconic that I just think of this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's absolutely fair.
It also just helps to make it a bit creepier, and then we have that haze and the fog when we see the girls doing the jump rope like in slow motion, and then it kind of just fades into the real world, which to me is kind of helping blend dreams with reality here. Because one of the things I want to point out as we go through this, one of the fan theories is that all of this that happens starting from here, it's all a dream. None of this actually happens. It's all in Nancy's head.
I could buy that.
And there's quite a few things that we could get into that will prove that, but I'll point those out as we go.
Please do.
Tina meets her friends at school the next morning. Her boyfriend Rod, played by Nick Corey, her best friend Nancy, and Nancy's boyfriend Glenn, played by Johnny Depp. Nancy and Tina discover that they have both had the same nightmare, and although Glenn and Rod try to hide the fact, they seem to have been having nightmares too. That night, Nancy and Glenn decide to stay with Tina because her mother has gone out of town. Rod shows up later and frightens the three of them by making strange sounds in the backyard and then jumping out at Glenn. The intro to Rod is so atypical 80s bad boy.
I had a heart on this morning when I woke up, Tina. Had your name written all over it.
What?
I hate Rod so much. Oh my god, what a fucking creep. What a just an awful man. Like, is he actually your boyfriend in the beginning? Because it seems like the sleepover is the first time they get together.
No, they're together.
Because like the way they talk about him at the beginning, like Nancy's like, "Oh, that Rod sure is sweet on you."
I mean, I think they're not officially together until that night, but like they've clearly done some stuff. Hand stuff, at least.
This scene made me really like Tina because of how much she tells Rod off and like puts him in his place for harassing her. That respect for Tina goes right out the window a little bit later on in the movie, but we'll get there. I instantly hate Rod as soon as he's on screen.
I fully agree. No, Rod is someone that you're not really supposed to root for. You're supposed to be turned off by the fact he's there, but he's also there to kind of just play that typical slasher part. Because in slasher films, the people that die tend to be a stereotype of some sort. So he is 80s like greaser type. Like, hey, I got a hot on for yous, baby. Like, he's not talking like that, but you could add that voice to him and no one would be surprised.
Yeah, I would not be. Absolute garbage person. Do not like him. I hope he dies.
I love that we also get to see them acting like actual teenagers before we jump back into the story. We get a little fun scene where Glenn is calling his parents and using the sound effects tape on the boombox to make it seem like he's staying somewhere else. I think he said it's his aunt's house or something. The only problem I have with this is this doesn't make any sort of sense because, no, Ma, I'm just staying at Aunt Carol's house, right? Do they not talk? How is he think he's going to get away with this? Oh, remember when Glenn spent the night at your house last Wednesday? He did what? This is a dumb plan. Although then again, Glenn's pretty dumb.
Yeah, I think it just fits into the bigger, moral of this movie, which is just don't think about it.
Rod showing up at the sleepover, I feel, is done in a very clever way. So again, another thing with slashers, because I know you're not super familiar with them, especially slashers of the time, it always felt like there was a scene where it goes eerily quiet. And usually somewhere in the dark, someone standing alone, that person gets attacked by the killer, right? Mm-hmm. But what Craven did here was have that be a false setup, which kind of plays into the whole, like, Tina, you just had a bad dream, get over it. Shout out to Glenn walking in the dark, thinking it's a cat.
Kitty, kitty. Chow, chow, chow.
What the is that?
It's right up there with Glenn just threatening to punch whoever's out there in the face.
Because he's a big old scary jock.
Oh, he's gonna sports you. He's gonna sports you real good.
Rod and Tina go upstairs into a bedroom to have sex, while Nancy and Glenn sleep separately downstairs. Nancy resists the idea of fooling around, since she and Glenn are supposedly there as moral support for Tina. When Tina falls asleep, she dreams of the disfigured man who attacks her. In real life, Rod sees her fatally slashed and dragged onto the ceiling by an unseen force, forcing him to flee. Nancy and Glenn then find Tina bloodied and dead.
Alright, so Tina being into Rod and, going upstairs with him and banging him, terrible choice. I instantly hate Tina now. All the respect I had for her is absolutely gone. But I do like that Tina was set up to be the main character, and then she's the first one to die. That is a clever choice. That's something I will give the movie credit for, but I'm glad she did. Well,
because now, throughout the film, you question, okay, who's going to die next? Because if this was the main character, who's the next person to go? It could literally be anybody.
Yeah, tain't nobody safe.
Also, the sex is just aggressively like two people who've never actually had sex before.
Yeah, it's two people pretending to have sex.
And it's bad. It's really bad. It's like this aggressive moaning and screaming. They had to have been having fun with it, I feel, at this point, because they're like, whatever, it's a slasher film. We don't have to really act.
It's certainly a choice.
All right, let's talk Tina's dream here. She wakes up, hears something outside, goes out to check, like an idiot, because it turns out it's Freddy. But prior to that, we get a quick snippet of Nancy's dream where Freddy is stretching out the walls, reaching for her before he retreats. So keep in mind here, there's nothing to signal at this point that Nancy was having a dream. We just assume that, but there wasn't like an edit away that showed that she was like dreaming. All we see is the one shot of like the wall and the bed, and she lays down and falls asleep. Freddy kind of like semi pushes his face and hands against the wall, and as she's waking up, he retreats. Again, I really feel like it supports the theory that all of this happened in Nancy's dream.
Yeah, the trek so far.
Also in my head canon, Freddy came to that room to kill Tina, saw Nancy in Tina's bed, and then pulled back so he could go look for Tina instead.
I buy it.
I also really do enjoy how they set up where we don't have confirmation that this is a dream until we see Tina screaming and having her body like dragged up the wall. There's never a transition of like haziness or a quick edit away to kind of like tell us like, oh yeah, no, this is totally a dream. Like it's the same thing with Nancy's dream where she wakes up like briefly and then falls right back asleep. Again, I think it's clever because it keeps us on our toes and keeps the audience going like, wait, what's happening? I thought that, is this not a dream? Is this actually happening? What's going on?
Nothing is real.
And Tina's death, this is one of the most iconic deaths in all of horror for very good reason. It's terrifying to watch.
Yeah, this was incredibly well done horror death. The way that like her skin rips open, the flying all around, going up on the ceiling. That would be a horrific thing to wake up to. And then who the is going to believe that happened? Rod's just alone in a room with a bloody corpse.
And one of the clever things they do a few times in the film is they never cut back to see what Freddy was doing in Dreamland.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like keeping that mystique going of this is the horror that's happening, but I'm not showing you everything. At the police station, Nancy's dad, Don Thompson, played by John Saxon, takes Nancy's account of what happened. While on her way to school the next day, Rod finds Nancy and tells her he didn't kill Tina. Don, who had been following Nancy, arrests Rod. Don is such a grade A asshole of a cop. So a cop.
Yeah, you repeated yourself.
Yeah, I know. But like, think of it this way. His daughter just saw the bloodied body of her best friend, probably like no less than like 2 or 3 hours ago, right? And he's giving her the third degree about her spending the night with friends.
Yeah, there's a reason that her parents are divorced.
Also, it tracks why he would use her. But then he also still gives her crap for going to school in the first place. Like, he follows her, arrests Rod, which was his plan the whole time, and then yells at her like, what are you even doing going to school right now? Bro, she didn't go to school. You wouldn't be here. You're following her because you know she's like, you asshole.
Trying to have his cake and arrest it, too. I know that Rod is completely innocent of this crime, but I do not feel bad for him getting arrested and thrown in jail.
Yeah, neither do I. It's fine. He's not a nice person, Squirrel.
No. Rod sucks.
At school, Nancy falls asleep in class and dreams that the man chases her to the boiler room. She deliberately burns her arm on a pipe, which startles her awake in class and notices a burn mark on her arm. Nancy visits Rod at the police station, where he describes Tina's death along with his own recent nightmares about the same man. Notice how in class, what's the Shakespearean play they're covering?
They're actually covering 2 plays, and I take issue with this. First, they're talking about Hamlet and the themes involved, and then suddenly she has the kid get up and read from Julius Caesar. Any English class teaching Shakespeare is gonna go 1 play at a time. They are dense, they take a lot of concentration to get through, and no one would be studying Shakespeare at a high school level and just drawing similar themes from one play to another. You gotta make sure the kids actually understand what plays you're talking about first. That really pissed me off, the way they did that.
So I'm not familiar with Julius Caesar, so maybe you could shed light on this. However, Hamlet is a story about revenge. I feel like that's some breadcrumbs here.
I can see that connection being made, yeah. Hamlet learns of his father's murder, plots his revenge, spends a whole bunch of time deliberating whether or not to kill his uncle, and a whole bunch of people die. I can see that. But yeah, the Julius Caesar thing, I feel like Wes Craven was just really into that monologue. I honestly didn't get a lot from it, but Don't mix plays like that. That's a bad.
Also, Nancy's dream is kind of wild. She starts by seeing Tina in a body bag speaking to her, then follows body bag Tina out of her classroom door to the school's boiler room. You have a hall monitor that's clearly supposed to be Freddy. It's got a really nice pace all to it, though.
Yeah, didn't have any issue with it. Story-wise, everything kind of comes to a halt, but it is a cool sequence. I feel like that happens every time they're in a dream sequence, honestly.
I think you're right, but I also think that I feel like these dream sequences are supposed to help build up more of the tension and showcasing more of like how powerful Freddy is. But the big takeaway from this dream sequence is when Nancy burns herself on that pipe, which causes her to be in enough pain to wake her up. This shows two things. One, you can wake up while Freddy is like coming at you. And two, Nancy is smart as hell.
It's fair. Those two things are established.
And I feel like it's put even further where when she's talking to Rod and Rod's revealing he's had dreams about Freddy, you can start seeing her piece it all together in her face. However, she's still at the point where she doesn't want to believe it. She just feels like she's probably just gaslighting herself at this point. Like, no, this isn't real. This isn't happening. It's fine. Don't worry about it.
And then Nancy screaming in the middle of English class. I like to believe it's because they mixed plays. She was so horrified by it. Like, I really take issue with that, Corey. I don't know if that's coming across, but don't do that.
At home, Nancy falls asleep in the bathtub and is nearly drowned by the man. She then relies on caffeine to stay awake and invites Glenn to watch over her as she sleeps. In her dream, she sees the man preparing to kill Rod in his cell, but he turns his attention toward her. Nancy wakes up when her alarm clock goes off.
Dude, Glenn has one job.
Glenn is the worst boyfriend imaginable. You just had to stay awake. That's it. And it wasn't even that long. I think she's like, oh yeah, I'll just go to sleep for like an hour or so. And he's like, okay, I'll just sit here. And he just passes out. Bruh.
Absolutely useless.
But that glove coming out of the water when she's in the bath, I love that shot so much. It's so creepily sexual. And when you kind of learn more about like Freddy, so I guess one of the original ideas was to have Freddy be a child molester only, but Wes decided he wanted to get away from that, and I think because it was like a studio decision, like let's not do that, and he's like, okay, he's just a serial killer then, he just kills children. But I in my headcanon, he's still a child molester. Come on.
Yeah, I mean, he's got that bit later on in the movie where he's like,
I'm your boyfriend now, Nancy.
He's still a little molesty.
I think that even though they don't say it outright in this film, he is. He definitely is. Oh, yeah. And then, again, this dream here, when she's in the bathtub, it blurs the lines of reality and dreamland in just a very seamless way, further playing into the fan theory that all of this was just in Nancy's head. This was all a dream.
True.
Let's talk the second dream. So Nancy can just suddenly lucid dream without any kind of practice. I take issue with that.
Yeah, absolutely. That is hard as shit. I think I've lucid dreamed once in my life.
I think like if it was set up, she's like, well, I've always been able to like control my dreams or something like that. Like just throw it out there, right? Because so further on in the series, they establish that there are certain people who can be what they deem as dream warriors, where literally while they're in their dreams, they have the power to lucid dream like immediately. It's you very, very special people have this ability to do it. And I guess Nancy would technically be one of those people, but it's never explained at this point, and it was obviously an afterthought 2 films from now.
Yeah, that would have been nice to establish here.
Body Bag Tina makes another appearance, where she is also seemingly decomposing at a pretty fast rate. I mostly just like calling her Body Bag Tina. I'm Body Bag Barbie. Oh, God. And then the Freddy chase is your typical slasher chase here. But when it's Freddy, he's always doing something a little different. Like I said, he's super playful here with Nancy. Like at one point, he's wearing Tina's face and pleading with Nancy for help, and then just rips the face off, and he's just sitting there with that disgusting smile. It's completely part of his appeal, and I love it.
He's great at just like being everywhere.
Another thing that supports the fan theory, I'm just going to start calling it the fan theory. You all know what fan theory I'm talking about. If you don't, rewind and start from the beginning. The feather floating out the window. I just want to point out, Nancy closes that window after Glenn climbs through it from the outside. However, it's totally open when he climbs out of it. Because when he goes out that window, when he hears Nancy's mom coming, he just zips. He doesn't like stop, open the window, and step out.
Mhm.
He just walks right out. So again, another real supporting part that this is a dream. Like, could this be a plot hole? Yeah, but given everything else we see, the fan theory is playing out, man.
It's at this point also that I realized that Johnny Depp is in 2 different movies about a guy with finger blades.
I actually think that was his next major film, too, if I remember correctly, or next major starring role.
Really? That's 6 years later.
Again, major film and a starring role.
Yeah, he had 21 Jump Street in between those. Also, Nancy wakes up from her dream, looks in the mirror, and says, God, I look 20 years old. The actress was 20 years old.
10 of 10 joke. I love it.
Yeah.
Also, leave it to like a high schooler to make that like, God, I look like I'm 20.
Yeah.
But here's the other thing, too. She's a senior in high school, so she's like, what, 17, 18? Like, oh, no, I've aged 2 years. Is it really that big of a difference? Well, now that I say that out loud, okay, kids were smoking a lot more back in those days.
But hey, cigarettes make you cool.
To any advertisers listening, I'd like to put in a disclaimer and just say that we do not support that in any way, shape, or form.
Unless you're cool.
Nancy and Glenn rush to the police station, demanding to see Rod. However, they are too late, as the man kills Rod, staging it as a suicide. At his funeral, Nancy's parents become worried when she describes her dreams. Her mother, Marge, played by Ronnie Blakely, takes her to a sleep disorder clinic where, in a dream, Nancy grabs the man's fedora with the name Fred Krueger written in it and pulls it into the real world. I love the tension that's created as the blanket slowly wraps around Rod's neck and drags him up the cell. It's kind of mirroring Tina's death a little bit, where we don't see Freddy do it, but we see what it looks like in the real world. And I also feel like it's a clever way to keep the budget low.
Also, on top of all that, Rod dies, which, just terrific. Love it. 10 out of 10 choice movie.
Can I also just point out, of course, Rod's dad has a mullet.
Of course.
I don't know why that, just like I saw that, I'm like, that tracks. That was it.
Yep. They're mullet people.
We're a mullet family. Oh, I come from rat tail people. I shouldn't be here. That camera zoom in on the parents' faces as Nancy is describing Freddy, so well done. Like, obviously the expression on their faces help, but that quick zoom in on one before quickly cutting to the other to also zoom in on them just drives home that they know more than they're letting on.
Yep, they know something about this Freddy Krueger character. Also, around here, I realized what is wrong with this movie. There are no himbos. This movie needs a himbo.
Well, that's Freddy.
Freddy is not dumb, not hunky, not kind. He fails all 3 tests.
But he has the sex appeal of a burn victim.
We have different definitions of himbo.
We sure do, buddy.
Oh, boy.
But no, you're right. I think, so you feel that this should have had a himbo in it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that would make the movie so much better.
I think if we're going by 80s standards, that would have been Rod.
No.
Big guy, muscly, dumb as rocks. He
But he's a meanie and a harasser.
Again, an 80s himbo.
I don't like it. Needs a better class of himbo.
I also feel the sleep study here is a nice way to add just, again, a bit more mystery to the dreams. We kind of get a bit of a false flag by making us briefly believe that we're going to watch Nancy die. Because keep in mind, we already kind of got that with, oh, we thought Tina was the main character, and then she gets killed. And now, okay, Nancy's the main character. Wait, is she about to die? Are we about to lose another main character here? They also do it in the way where, again, they don't show us Freddy attacking her. We don't ever see Freddy truly killing anybody. We just get the real world view.
Yeah, all we see of Freddy is him just creeping around and laughing and stroking his finger blades.
Sniffing hair.
Ugh. The doctor saying we don't know what dreams are or where they come from.
The truth is, we still don't know what they are or where they come from.
Don't they? I'm pretty sure that's been figured out.
I think at this point it has. I did not do the research to figure out if by this point in the 80s we knew anything about that. So if anyone's listening and you know the science behind it, again, please comment on our Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube page and let us know. I'd be very interested in learning about this.
Please do.
Also, how do you feel about the large streak of Nancy's hair now being gray after the sleep study dream?
I did not notice that.
She points it out too. She's like, "Oh, what happened to your hair?" Like, and it's a whole big old streak of gray.
Oh, I totally missed that.
What do you think about that detail?
Yeah, no, it's nice. It shows the stress that her body and her mind are undergoing, and it is another physical manifestation of Freddy's torture. And also, gray hair just looks great. Silver foxes, we see you.
If any silver foxes want to become advertisers on the pod, please reach out to us on our Instagram, Facebook, or YouTube pages. Capitalism, baby! Nancy's mother continues to deny that anything strange is going on, and she insists that Nancy get some sleep. Instead, Nancy produces the fedora and points out the name written inside. Marge denies knowing who that is, and Nancy reacts angrily. Nancy has a conversation with Glenn, where Glenn tells her that certain Zen masters could control their dreams. Nancy asks what they would do if they met a monster in their dreams, and Glenn said they would turn their back on it, because if you take away a nightmare's energy, it disappears. Glenn also notices that she's reading books on creating booby traps and survival techniques. So, we get the first hint of Nancy's mom drinking, and she just very casually tries to hide the bottle of vodka, but not very well. It's still in plain sight.
And Nancy calls her out for it and gets smacked in the face.
Let's talk about the whole controlling your dreams just kind of being super shoehorned in there. It works to move the plot along, so I'm going to allow it, but it isn't great writing.
Very clearly a Chekhov's gun. Also, just like some Zen masters. Like, I feel like a lot of people can control their dreams. That's a fairly prevalent thing.
It's just wild to me that it's just so generic. Like you said, Zen masters. Like, you could have gotten really like, oh, they say that some Buddhist monks up in Tibet are able to control their dreams. Just something like that. Just give it a little bit more of a mysticism to it, of like, Zen masters. Who are these Zen masters, Glenn? Masters of Zen, of course.
F***ing Glenn. Glenn's got no Zen.
Zero Zen Glenn is what they actually call him on the football field.
Heh. Jock.
After barricading the house, Marge explains that Krueger was an insane child murderer who killed 20 children, but was released on a technicality. He was then burned alive by the victims' parents, who sought vigilante justice. Now a vengeful ghost, Krueger is killing Nancy and her friends out of revenge and to satiate his psychopathic needs.
How dramatic is Nancy's mom with the whole,
"Come down to the cellar with me and I'll tell you"?
How absolutely dramatic do you have to be to just tell the truth about your horrid past?
Well, she had to show that piece of evidence that they kept hidden in their furnace for many, many years for literally no reason.
Not a single reason.
She literally even says, like, oh yeah, I took his glove. Why, Marge? Why do you have evidence that you and all these people murdered somebody? Like, to be fair, the guy totally had it coming. Why are you keeping a trophy?
Yep.
I also love that when she's telling her story, she says that Freddy killed at least 20 kids in the neighborhood. Now, to me, this makes him a bit more horrifying, because saying at least 20 kids means that they either lost count as to how many kids Freddy killed, or they don't know the number. They can only have 20 confirmed kills.
Yeah, dude is prolific and loves his work. You know, they say if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life.
He's dead, honey, because Mommy killed him.
Why? Why is that the line? Why do you deliver it that way, Marge? What is wrong with you?
There's so much wrong with Marge.
Oh my god. You can't blame it all on the alcohol, because she's kind of weird throughout the film.
Yeah.
I haven't seen anything else of the actress's work either, so I don't know if this is par for the course and that she's just a bad actress, or she was just doing this on purpose for some reason. I really do not know. Or maybe, now that I'm saying it out loud, maybe it's kind of further proof that, like, Nancy's mom is acting kind of weird, kind of not like how a normal person would act. Maybe that plays more into the whole this is a dream thing, although that's a stretch.
I think she's just a weirdo.
Nancy calls Glenn and asks him to wake her up when she goes to sleep next so she can bring Krueger into the real world. They agree to start the plan at midnight. While waiting for midnight, Glenn falls asleep and is killed by Krueger. Want to point out before we get into Glenn being an utter failure in life, Nancy's mom pulling the vodka bottle out of the linen closet. I went to go see this film in theaters earlier this year. They were doing like a 40th anniversary showing. And when she pulled the vodka bottle out of the linen closet, the whole theater erupted into laughter. It's so surreal. Like, who are you hiding this from? Is Nancy taking your vodka away? Are you afraid that Nancy's gonna smash the vodka bottle like she did back in the kitchen when you had your initial fight? I don't understand the logic here. Like, clearly these people are well off enough to where they would have a liquor cabinet. So again, why the linen closet, Marge? Tell me why the linen closet.
That's her cleaning vodka.
All right, let's get into Glenn Sucks, and thank God he's dead because he's just a horrible. He's horrible at life, man. This guy cannot do anything right.
Obviously, the way this guy normally falls asleep is by listening to records while watching TV. And that's exactly what he does when he's told, hey, just be awake. Just don't sleep. Also, who listens to music on their headphones while watching TV? That just seems like psychopathic behavior to me.
Maybe he's the real Freddy we made along the way.
He could be. Then he would at least be useful for something.
Especially in the 80s, I get listening to your music on your headphones because it was all vinyl at that point, right?
Yeah.
So I get that because it's either the headphones or giant speakers and it's nighttime and he's trying to be considerate of, his parents. So I get that. But sitting in bed, not even watching the TV from a distance, it's in his lap. Like it has to be right there. And when his mom questions him about it, he just goes, I like staring at the pictures, Mom. Glenn, you are so dumb. Is Glenn supposed to be the himbo?
I don't know. I feel like a himbo has a brighter personality.
Yeah, and his personality is just like, I'm here.
Yep. Well, I'm Glenn.
All right, let's talk about this death, though. This is my favorite death in the entire film because of how over the top it is. Like the ridiculous amount of blood just exploding out of the bed. Again, it's another death that we don't actually get to see Freddy commit.
Yeah, dude just sinks into the bed and then he's a geyser.
So they did shoot a scene of what's supposed to happen after that, where Glenn raises up through the hole after all the blood goes everywhere. He's completely rigid until he's fully out of the hole, and then he just collapses on the bed. And I'm kind of glad they left that out. We don't need that. Let's keep that kind of mystery alive. We don't need to see a body, because with all that blood, there shouldn't be a body left.
Yeah, we know whose blood that is. That's enough.
Also, to play further into the fan theory, notice how when Glenn dies, his mom finds the body. Cops are there. They're walking in and out of the room. We never see the inside of Glenn's room when the police are there. I think, again, it's a subtle thing, but further playing into this was all Nancy's dream. Why wouldn't they show us looking at the carnage in the room? Probably for budgetary reasons, but from a story standpoint, I just feel like it's another small piece of evidence to the fan theory.
It could be. I feel like that one's maybe a bit of a stretch, but I'm still there with you.
I do like my yoga, so.
Yeah, sometimes just less is more, especially since we got that whole gratuitous blood fountain. Just seeing their reactions to the aftermath, I think, is more than enough to tell us how horrific it is. The medical examiner has been throwing up in the bathroom since they got there.
What a pussy. I'll be honest, I would be that guy just totally like busting his balls. Like, you can't handle a little blood, huh? I think you're in the wrong line of work, Mr. Medical Examiner. Smoking a cigar over him as he's just retching out, and the mother is in the hallway, like, crying and can hear me talking all this shit.
I love it.
They raised a horrible child, so.
Yeah.
Now alone, Nancy asks her father, who is across the street investigating Glenn's death, to break into the house in 20 minutes. She rigs booby traps around the house and grabs Krueger out of her dream and into the real world. The booby traps allow her to light him on fire and lock him in the basement. There's also a conversation that Nancy has with her mom, and in the middle of them talking, while Marge is in bed, she just pulls out a vodka bottle so nonchalantly. And it's so unintentionally funny. And it gave me the idea for a very easy Halloween costume that would also be really niche. You get a wig, a nightgown, and a bottle of vodka. Congratulations, you're Nancy's mom.
Beautiful. That is incredibly niche.
Something I'd also want to point out, though. So Nancy screams to her father, hey, break into the house in 20 minutes. But she has booby traps around the house, and there's no guarantee that she's going to get Krueger out of her dream. She's kind of almost setting her dad up to, like, be brutally murdered by these booby traps.
Oh my god, I didn't even think of that.
Because, like, these aren't just, like, a simple, like, oh, a tripwire. Like, no, there's a sledgehammer that's supposed to come down and hit you in the face. What?
Yeah. Yeah, she did not around with these Home Alone gags.
That's literally my note. Home Alone style booby traps.
Mm-hmm.
Final girl, final fight. Let's get into it. How did you feel about this showdown?
Her final dream leading up to it is just such a slow build. I think maybe it took a little bit too long for Freddy to show up in this one. Like, we all know he's coming, and she's just, meandering about. The final fight where she lights him on fire in the real world and he's traipsing all around the house, I thought it was decent.
I think you're right. I think it is definitely drawn out a little too long, and at the end of the day, it is kind of underwhelming. There's more humor here that I don't think was meant to be humorous. Like when he falls over the stair railing and down the stairs, it's funny. It's very, very funny. Also, notice how Krueger no longer has his hat, which is them just kind of great, keeping up the continuity. His hat's gone. Where's his hat? Nancy has it, so he's not wearing a hat anymore.
True.
And as I said before, this is my favorite performance from Langenkamp. The best performance she gives the entire film, because Nancy is exhausted. She's barely slept. She is stressed beyond all belief, witnessing all of her friends die. For instance, when she's talking to her dad on the phone, like you can hear it in her voice, she is losing her mind. She is just mentally, physically, emotionally exhausted. And you can also just see it in her eyes, too. Just the way that she's, like, carrying them. Like, they're so heavy. They're just so heavy the entire time. And this is the performance I feel matters the most throughout the entire film. This last bit, we as the audience have to feel that Nancy is at her wit's end. And while she is smart, she might not actually make it out of this.
She's a very clever girl here. And yeah, you can tell the lack of sleep is really getting to her.
The police arrive to find that Krueger has escaped from the basement. Nancy and Don find a burning Krueger smothering Marge in her bedroom. After Don extinguishes the fire, Krueger and Marge vanish into the bed before Krueger rises behind Nancy. Realizing that Krueger is fueled by his victim's fear, she calmly turns her back to him, and Krueger evaporates. It's really unsettling seeing Marge's corpse drift into the bed after they get Krueger off of her. It's done so well. Like the fog, the giant hole, like the way it just slowly gets into the bed, and there's like lightning and stuff happening in there. I love it.
Yeah, no, it is a cool effect, which this movie is full of, absolutely. I don't fully buy that Freddy is actually fueled by his victim's fears, though. Because if he was, then Nancy's whole thing would have worked.
I think you're correct. I feel like it's really, really weird that, oh, what's his weakness? Oh, don't believe in him.
Like Tinkerbell.
Right. Like, I do not believe in Kruegers. And do I have to, like, stab children in order to bring him back to life? Is that what's happening here? And if that's the case, also, how did he come back in the first place?
Again, the movie's theme, don't think about it.
Also, I just like to say that we do see the moral of the story here, though, with how Freddy, is defeated. Don't believe in your dreams, kids!
Is he defeated, though?
We'll get there. Nancy steps outside into a foggy morning where all her friends and her mother are still alive. She gets into Glenn's convertible to go to school when the top suddenly comes down, colored in green and red stripes, and locks them in as the car speeds down the street, while Marge waves them goodbye on the doorstep. 3 girls in white dresses playing jump rope chant Krueger's nursery rhyme as Marge is grabbed by Krueger through the front door window and dragged in. It's kind of wild how the fog makes it feel more like a dream than anything else, and it ends up being just that. And again, this just further plays into the whole everything that happened was just a dream in Nancy's head.
That's the best explanation I can have for the way this movie ends. It is bizarre, to say the least. Just the fact that a car is Freddy Krueger, that all her friends are alive, or all that. Like, everything Nancy did was for nothing, basically.
Here's what I'll ask you. Do you think Nancy survives this? I know you haven't seen any of the sequels, so...
No.
Okay, so I know through watching all the sequels, she does survive, as she has a very prominent role in the third film, which is Dream Warriors, which, spoiler alert, that is my favorite sequel in this entire franchise. It's the only one that I feel like was done properly. However, in that film, it's also mentioned that her mother did die, so Marge is definitely dead at this point. Nancy somehow escaped, but all of her friends died. Never explained how or why. Just, even in the sequels, I know, we roll with it, all right? It's a horror slasher film.
Did Craven do the sequels?
He did none of the sequels, except for, I think it was A New Nightmare was the only one he did. He was a producer on all of them, because obviously, he wrote, so why not produce and just make money? But he did A New Nightmare, which was the final Freddy film before Freddy versus Jason, but he didn't have anything to do with that.
Gotcha.
Also, gotta point out, Nancy's mom being pulled through the window is just clearly a blow-up doll in a dress.
Yeah.
I love it so much, because they could have probably done some type of mannequin and something else, but again, the budget was so low, they were like, no, just, all right, listen, you're gonna go to that store right down the street at the corner that the Teamsters frequent, get a blow-up doll, get her nightgown on her, and we're just gonna shoot this in 10 seconds.
God, the way she gets sucked in is very comical.
Kind of playing into like how the franchise goes. There's a lot of humor throughout the franchise. Like it's making fun of itself as it goes, which is nice. It's one thing I do like about the sequels is it's definitely making fun of itself, even if the stories and the writing is utter trash for the most part.
That's fair. Yeah.
And folks, that's going to be 1984's A Nightmare on Elm Street. We did it.
We certainly did. I can now say that this is certainly a movie. One of the movies of all time.
Steve, I would love to hear more about this. I'm just going to take a quick 20-minute nap in and out of Dreamland. Quick adventure, all right?
All right, cool. I'll definitely wake you up.
Please be the Glenn to my Nancy.
I got you, boo-boo.
But while that's happening, folks, I'm just going to take a quick commercial break. Folks, you've been asking about it for years. You come up to me, you come up to Steve, and you say, guys, where's the merch for the pod?
I know, right? Just leave us alone for 2 seconds, people.
That's right, Steve. We've been way too busy doing all types of other things, such as jumping jacks and putting together puzzles and
documents.
Tons of documents. But who has time to sit there and truly set up a merch store?
Not me, I'll tell you what. If only there was an easier way for us to open up a merch store to sell our merch to people.
Well, you know what, Steve? There is. Live right now, we have the That Sounds Terrible Go On podcast store, and it's all available on redbubble.com. Go to redbubble.com, look up our store. It is TSTGo-pod. Again, TSTGo-pod. You'll see fun little things that we say on here. You'll find stickers, shirts, hats.
That's some high quality merchandise if I ever did see it right there.
So that's right, folks. Hit up redbubble.com, search TSTGo-pod, all one word, and we'll see you there.
Capitalism, baby!
Welcome back, folks.
Hey there. Look at you. You made it.
Yeah, sorry. I just got back from that power nap, and oh boy, I'm feeling well rested. I'm feeling energetic, but I'm also feeling something else.
Is it are you feeling like a lot of something else?
No, I think I'm feeling
little bits.
Oh, just a little bit.
That's right, folks. Little bits is a part of the pod. We get to those things we didn't get to say. Maybe some fun stuff we learned along the way. So, Steve, do you have a bit?
Just wanted to shout out Tina's final dream, where Freddy's chasing her with his super long arms for no reason. They're just very clearly held up by string. They look so goofy, and it kind of takes me out of it. It's very silly. And then they're there for 2 shots.
And we never see him stretch his arms again in the film.
Never again. Mr. Not Very Fantastic. Corey, you got a bit?
After being turned down by Universal, Craven would frame the company's rejection letter on the wall of his office as a reminder of a time when he was in desperate personal and financial strait. Of course, we're going to have to read it off to you, so here it is.
Let's go.
We have reviewed the script you have submitted, A Nightmare on Elm Street. Unfortunately, the script did not receive an enthusiastic enough response from us to go forward at this time. However, when you have finished print, please get in touch and we would be delighted to screen it for a possible negative pickup. I really like that he just kind of took that negative and he was like, no, this is a reminder of when I was really struggling in my career, wasn't getting any kind of footwork. Because, I mean, look between like 1972 was his first film and 1984. There's not a lot there for him. And I think the fact that also Universal just being like, I think we would like to screen what you have with this and maybe we'll pick it up as a distributor. A little bit of light at the end of the road. Or it could just be them doing the Hollywood thing of like, hey, maybe this turns out being really good and we were wrong, but we'd like to still make money off it.
Yeah, in Hollywood, you never say no. You say, let's do lunch.
Steve, let's do lunch.
Oh.
But Steve, you got a bit?
Just another very silly gag that kind of brightened up this movie for me a bit. When Nancy is pretending to sleep, her mom is clearing out her room of like all her coffee mugs and her stay awake pills and everything, and then leaves the room. Then Nancy bolts back up and pulls a second coffee maker out from under her bed.
That is on and running.
Right. Like, how does Nancy's mom not smell that?
The vodka. She's so drunk she can't smell that coffee. You know how like sometimes you get so drunk you can't taste this chicken?
No, I've never experienced that in my life.
Well, Marge was so drunk she couldn't smell the coffee.
Oh, Marge. You train wreck of a mother. Corey, you got a bit?
So there's a deleted scene that explains why Nancy's mom begins drinking when she reads Kruger's name on the hat. So during the scene where she's telling Nancy about how her and the other parents killed Kruger, she explains that Kruger molested and killed Nancy, Rod, Glenn's, and Tina's older siblings. She even reveals to her that Nancy wasn't always an only child. So what this does, it explains why these specific kids are the only ones targeted out of the entire high school. I'm kind of mad they cut this because it offers so much more motivation for why the parents did it. Like, oh, a bunch of the parents got around and did this. Wait, did they kill your children? They never explain that, right?
Right.
It also explains why Nancy's mom begins consistently drinking, because she sees Freddy's name and is then reminded of what her and the parents did and what was taken from her, which was her firstborn child. And now she's concerned about her next child.
That would have been nice to have, because the way it comes across to a first-time viewer who has no context here is that the neighborhood parents just banded together just because they are parents, not because they're related to any of the victims. It's just like, oh, I've got kids, I'm going to kill this guy that killed some other kids. It's not as strong.
And it doesn't make it as personal of a vengeance, which that strength in that would explain why Freddy now has like the strength of that vengeance kind of like thrust upon him. So now he has strength through the vendetta that he's carrying out at this point. It's so strong of a thing. I'm really mad they cut it. And I think the reason they cut it is because she specifically mentions that Kruger molested and killed the older siblings, and they wanted to kind of be like, we don't want to do the molestation thing. He's just a child killer. We
can't have our villain doing bad things. Can't have that.
Not in this economy.
Little bits!
Oh, just a little bit.
All right, folks, now it's time for everybody's favorite segment.
Oh, the Untitled Ben Affleck segment?
That's right, Steve. It's As Played by Ben Affleck.
Untitled Ben Affleck segment.
Now, for those who've never listened in, As Played by Ben Affleck.
Untitled Ben Affleck segment.
Is when we take a character from the film that we just watched to replace with Ben Affleck. Now we have 3 eras of Ben Affleck that we have to choose from. So we choose a character to replace with what era and why. First off, we have the Good Will Hunting era Ben Affleck, where he was the indie darling and just starting to get into action films. Next up, we have Jiggly era Ben Affleck. This is the rom-com starting around, the release of the Jiggly film. And finally, we have Batfleck era Ben Affleck, where he's older, more chiseled, and got that beautiful salt and pepper beard. Now, with that being said, Steve, who are you replacing with Ben Affleck? What era and why?
I am replacing a very small role here with Ben Affleck, and that is going to be the role of Glenn's dad. Really only shows up in one scene, but he is such a delight of a character. He's probably my second favorite behind Nancy. Just the way that he is just no nonsense about, oh, this is the middle of the night. She doesn't need to talk to Glenn. He's not here. Hangs up the phone. You know what? Takes it off the hook. I think that would be great with Batfleck era Ben Affleck. Think it would be very silly. Corey, who are you replacing with Ben Affleck? What era and why?
I've talked about her nonstop throughout this, and I have to replace Ronnie Blakely as Marge with Batfleck era Ben Affleck, mostly because you gotta be older to play the parent more than anything. But I just really love the idea of Ben Affleck in his Batfleck era, in the nightgown, the whole shebang, the wig, and just pulling vodka bottles out of nowhere and just like, mommy loves you, right? Don't change any of the dialogue, keep everything similar. I think it would be super, super silly, and I totally buy into it.
I love it. Beautiful.
All right, folks, that's going to wrap up as played by Ben Affleck.
Untitled Ben Affleck segment.
And it's going to lead us to our final question, which, of course, is, Steve, would you watch this film again?
Honestly, kind of lukewarm on it. Probably not going to seek it out again. Probably not going to seek out the sequels. Yeah, I think once was enough.
So, Steve, with that being said, what scenario would get you to watch this again?
If I'm watching it with someone who has never seen it before, and it's sort of like a cozy rainy night situation, I think that could be fun. Or with the way you saw it on the big screen with everybody laughing at Marge pulling the vodka out of the linen closet, I think that could be a fun time. Like, if I'm with a bunch of people that also think this is very silly and are making fun of it, I'd probably have a better time. Corey, would you watch this film again?
I absolutely would. I like this film, even though it has flaws. I really enjoy the franchise, and it's kind of the same thing that I brought up with our last episode, Alien. I love the world building of this franchise. I like how we learn more about Freddy as a character and what his powers are, what he can do, why he's this way, like what's his whole story. Because as the franchise goes, you do learn a little bit more about Freddy each time, and it just kind of gets more and more messed up as we go to it kind of eventually just becomes almost a parody of like, he is the epitome of evil because he's the product of a nun who was impregnated by a whole slew of mental patients. That's legitimately part of the story.
Wow.
That gets uncovered, and like then he has like, oh look, it's Freddy's daughter who survived and doesn't know that she's Freddy's daughter, has to kill him. It gets really, really weird and really, really fun, I think, just because they totally steer away from the actual horror aspect and just go straight for comedy for the most part. And usually it works. Even though, like I said, number 3, Dream Warriors, is the best sequel, I still would watch this one or any of the sequels any day of the week if someone suggested it.
Right on. Also, just like side note, Wes Craven, third movie related, Scream 3 is the best of that franchise as well, for humor-related reasons.
Okay, that I can agree on, and we'll get there.
I hope so.
And folks, that's going to wrap up 1984's A Nightmare on Elm Street. We did it. Another film in the spooky book.
We diddly did it.
Folks, this has been quite a time. 40 years of Nightmare on Elm Street. I don't know how we're going to top this film, especially it's spooky season. Like, how are we going to close this out, Steve?
I don't know, man. Like, Halloween is coming up, so I just don't know what else we could do to be in the spirit of Halloween. Because, like, Halloween is such an iconic holiday. Halloween. We're doing Halloween.
Oh, the Rob Zombie one?
God, no. We've done our share of Rob Zombie movies. We've done more than enough. We are doing the OG, Halloween, Michael Myers going around in a William Shatner mask. It's going to be great. Another one that I've never seen.
That's right, folks. We are going to be tackling 1978's Halloween, the OG slasher film. You got John Carpenter as the director, the composer, co-writer on the screenplay. You got Jamie Lee Curtis. Come on, what is there not to love about this? I'm sure we'll find something because, again, Steve and I, we've never seen it, and it's time we cross this one off our lists.
We're going in cold.
But until then, folks, I've been tricking, I've been treating, I've been Corey.
And I'm just Steve.
Bye.
Bye! That's her cleaning vodka. But hey, cigarettes make you cool.